Okay, so this is the practice test answers. All questions up to question, I think 20, not 20, 14, no, 13 should be done without a calculator. They would come from paper 2. Paper 2 is the non-calculator paper, the short questions. Paper 4, which is the longer questions and calculator questions, you can see examples of that in the second test, which is the longer, maybe harder questions. Anyway, let's get on with the answers to this. I might ask some of you for answers, but mostly won't. First things here, when you're doing subtraction of fractions and they're mixed numbers, you can take the whole numbers separately, or you can just make improper fractions. I'm going to go straight away to make improper fractions. 4 times 5 is 20. Add it to the top. I get 22 over 5. Take away 5 over 3. Okay, if you're unsure of that skill, do ask me again at a different time. Common denominator here is going to be 15, so they both can be written over 15. 5 is being multiplied by 3 to get to 15, so I must multiply the top by 3 to create an equivalent fraction, otherwise I will have changed it. This one's been multiplied by 5, so the other one comes to 25. And now there's a common denominator, so they can be subtracted. I think I get 41 over 15, and I would like answers to be as a mixed number, so that's 2 whole and 11 fifteenths, so 15 fits in twice. So for that, generally, if there's some attempt to get a common denominator, you can get 1 mark. If you got it wrong, 1 is probably the max you get. Right, this is a fraction's lowest term, so there's 2 decimal places after the 0, after the decimal spot. So it's 68 over 100. So if there's 2 decimal places, 100, 1 decimal place, 10, 3 decimal places, 1000. I'm going to simplify that by dividing the top and the bottom by the same number. 2 is always an easy one to start off with if they're both even numbers. So 50 at the bottom here, the top is 34. Okay, I notice I can go 2 again. So that's going to be 17 on the top and 25 on the bottom. And that's going to be my final answer. Okay, it's either right or wrong. There's only 1 mark for that. Division, 1 mark, yeah. Division of fractions is keep the first fraction the same, change the sign to multiply, and flip the second fraction. It's the reciprocal, it's called. I don't think there's much pre-simplifying to be done here. So 9 times 3 is 27, and 7 times 8 is 56. And there's going to be no simplifying, I don't think. So 27 over 56. Okay. 2. It's written beside it on the screen. So if you can't, see. Okay. Write the list of numbers starting with the smallest. I imagine a lot of you did this on the calculator. You're supposed to be able to do it without the calculator, which means if you want to compare something, you need to have the same unit almost to compare. So turn them all into fractions, all in percentages, or all into decimals. Maybe decimals is the easiest one. Let's go with decimals and see how we do. So 2/3 is kind of one we should know. That's 0.66 recurring, that little dot or line suggests that. 65% is 0.65, that's okay. Square root of 0.7, I'll come back to that. 0.069, that's going to be quite small. 0.6 squared, that's a tricky one. That's going to be 0.6 times 0.6. Now, 6 times 6 is 36. That's the only multiplication that needs to be done. But how many decimal places do I have? I will have 2. Because there's 2 in the question. 1, 2. So there's 2 in the answer. So that's 0.36 is that one. The square root of 0.7. How do I do that without the calculator? Well, I don't really. I have to estimate where that's at. What's the nearest whole number square root and to 70, let's say? It's the nearest one. There's one at 81, isn't there? And there's one at 64 of 70. So the square root of 81 is 9, and the square root of 81 and square root of 64 is 8. So this sits somewhere between 0.8 and 0.9, doesn't it? Or does it? 0.84. Yeah. So that's how you do it. So 0, it sits somewhere between 0. It's all I need to know is it's bigger than 0.8. So I use 0.70 here. So 0.80 and 0.64. So if you worked it on the calculator, you get 0.84. So it's clearly the biggest number. So the biggest number is, and I put them in, not in my changed form, in the original form. So the biggest number is square root of 0.7. The next one then is this 2/3. Then the next smallest is 0.65, I think. And then we've got a 0.6 squared and 0.069. Okay, so it's 2 marks. If you get them in the wrong order, you're probably not going to get any marks for that. So it's 2 marks or nothing, especially since you had a calculator. Okay, question 4 then is the lowest common multiple question. Some confusion how to do this. Multiples, there's 2 methods. We could do the listing method, which is kind of look at the 20 times tables. 20 times 1 is 20, 20 times 2 is 40, 20 times 3 is 60, and so on. And 24, you do the same thing, and you eventually reach 1. A foolproof way that I usually go is the prime factor tree, which we did earlier on. 20 and 24, I can split up into this prime factors, 4 times 5 here, and 2 times 2 for 20. So prime, prime, prime. So if you stop when it's prime. So 20 is 2 times 2 times 5. 24, 3 times 8 maybe, and 8 is 2 times 4, and 4 is 2 times 2. So that's quite quick, but I'm sure you've done these since year 7. So I write out all its prime factors, prime, 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 and I see what's in common. There's a 2, and then there's another 2. So this is giving me the highest common factor. This is this method. I think we'll revisit it again here. So the highest common factor, which is not what the question asked, but I'm showing you this method, is 2 times 2, which is 4, 2 times 2. But the lowest common multiple, which is asked, is that number 4 multiplied by the remaining numbers, 2 times 3 times 5. I think if you do that, you get 120, don't you? Yeah. Okay. Now, there is I think the listing method probably would get you there a bit quicker, but maybe without a calculator, it might have been a bit difficult, but up to you. Highest common factor of 96 and 60, you can use the same factor tree method. If you're quick at factor trees, you can do it, or list them all out. 96, I know, is divisible by 3. 3 fits in 32 times. 32 is then, oh, that's a lot of 8s, so a lot of 2s. 8 times 4, and that's 2 times 2. And 8 is 4 times 2, and I'm running out of space, 2 times 2. Okay, a lot of 2s. 2 to the power of 5 and 3. 60 then can be 6 times 10. 10 is 5 times 2. And 6 is 3 times 2. Okay, so what's the highest common factor? There's a 2, there's another 2, and there's a 3. So it's 2 times 2 times 3. I should have written it out like this, but I didn't have space. So it's 12. Once again, that definitely... That's 1 mark. Definitely could have been done just by knowing your times tables pretty well. The 12 is the highest, but it's up to you. Next question is the order of operations question. It's a bit blurry. This has to be done first, the multiplication of the 7 times 2, so 5 minus 14 plus 8. And then I do it in order. 5 take away 14 is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1. That's it. All right, so I'm sure some of you got this next question using the calculator, but the cube root of 0.001, I said to a few people, change this to a fraction. That's 1 over 1,000. So it's the cube root of 1 over 1,000. 1 over 1,000 can be written a different way. It can be written 1 over 10 to the power of 3. So it's the cube root of 1 over 10 to the power of 3. And if that's cubed and that's the cube root, they're opposites to each other, so it's 1 over 10. Just use the calculator for that for now. We haven't done much indices, so... no. Find the cube root of 0.001. Question 6. Okay. No, I'll leave that out. It was just attached to the other question. I forgot. Yes. Okay. Write down a prime number between 60 and 70. 67, yeah. Is there any other ones? 61, 67, only two, yeah. 61 or 67. Right, 36 is a product of its prime factors, so that's back to the prime factor tree if you want to draw another one. 4 times 9, 2 times 2, and 3 times 3. So product of the prime factors, 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, or 2 squared times 3 squared if you want to use index. Okay, so that's question 7. Question 8, standard form. Okay, I'll just write this a bit bigger. It was 8 to the power divided by 5 to the power 10. Okay. This does require you to know some rules of indices. If I'm dividing in indices, what do I do with the powers? Minus them. So that's a 7. That's a very badly drawn 7. So subtract. So the powers, it's going to be 10 to the power of 7 minus 12. So the power is going to be 10 to the power of 19. What's 8 divided by 5? Yeah. So it's 1.6. That's it. That's it, done. Next one. Without the use of calculator, I'm going to have to change these two numbers into just normal numbers and then add them. This was the adding of two standard form numbers. So at the moment, I have 7.5 by 10 to the negative 4, and I have 4 by 10 to the negative 6. So if I move this decimal place 4 spots, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and it ends up here. I'm going to fill these spots with zeros. So the number is, without the 10 to the negative 4, is 0.00075. This number, the decimal point is here, and I'm going to move it 6 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I fill in all the zeros there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. So 0.0050. Okay. There's the two numbers I need to add. I can line the decimal points up and then add them, and I get 0.000754. Give your answers in standard form, which I haven't done yet. I got to move this decimal point back. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 spots. So 7.54 by 10 to the negative 4. 4 spots back. Next one, I got to multiply the same numbers. If I multiply, I would add the powers. So let's do that first. 10 minus 4 plus minus 6, which is kind of a... So it's going to be by 10 to something. Minus 4 plus minus is a minus. So that's 10 to the minus 10. Now I got to multiply 4 times 7.5. I think that's 30, isn't it? 2 times 7.5 is 15, so 4 times is 30. So I have 30 by 10 to the negative 10, but of course I can't have 2 decimal places, I only have 1. So it's 3 by 10 to the what?
Negative 9.
Negative 9, yes. I add 1 to the power, 3 by 10 to the negative 9. All right, copy and complete this. Some of these should just know. Some of them you might have had to work out. Pauline?
What do you do when you minus standard form? We did add, divide, and hand. Is that just the same for add?
It's the same as adding, you just subtract it. Okay, so some of these, fraction, a quarter written as a decimal, 0.25. As a percentage, 25%. As a ratio, 1 to 4. Yes, 1.4. As a ratio, you just take the fraction and rewrite it, basically. So that will help with this fraction, 4 over 5 here and 5 over 4 here. I'll do 85 next. 85% as a decimal, that's pretty straightforward. As a fraction, in its lowest terms, 17 over 20, and therefore 17 dot dot 20. Everything would be expected to be simplified fully, so if they're not simplified, perhaps you can mark it correct today, and then maybe take a note to always simplify. Decimal to a percentage, that's straight up. 36 becomes 36%. Fraction, 36 over 100 breaks down to 18 over 50, breaks down to 9 over 25. 9 over 25, so 9 dot dot 25 for a ratio. 4/5 as a decimal, you can do 4 divided by 5 on a calculator if you want to do that. It's 80%. 0.2 recurring. We did this. This is the fancy one we did. That's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You want to do this thing where we start to call it X. What was the next step? Yeah, times both sides by 10, and I get this. Yes. So 10x is then, well, 2 plus 0.222 all the way down. And 0.222 is x, isn't it? 2 plus x. If I subtract the x over here, I get 9x is equal to 2, and x is equal to 2/9. 2/9. So 2 dot dot 9. Yep. And that's 22% recurring. So you can put a 22.2 if 3 significant figures. Yes. You could write that, yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Test, if you have that table, you got everything correct except for 1, will you still get 4 marks?
A table like this won't. It'll be more one number. So it won't be in the test. So it's just getting you practice on them. So you can pretty much give maybe 4 marks for the whole table because it should take you about 4 minutes. And if you get 1 wrong, just give yourself 3. Pauline?
For the test, will there be like a question where you have to use the method?
This? No. No. It's more of a cool trick. Or just learn. The only one that's could be asked is the 2/9 one. And that's 2/9 or 1/9. So 1/9 is 0.1111. 2/9 is 0.222. 3/9, of course, is 1/3, which is 0.3333, and so on. So it's going to be, if it's one of those, that's the only one that could be asked. That's going to be 9ths. They're just 9ths. 2/9, 3/9, well, 4/9, 5/9. Fraction, 5 over 4 as a decimal, 1.25. And as a percentage, 125%. Nearly done now on this one. Ratio, percentage of 200 is, as a decimal, is just 2. As a fraction is 2 over 1, and therefore is 2 to 1 as a ratio, 2 dot dot 1. And then the last one, 5.5 as a fraction is 5.5. As a percentage then is 550%, and as a ratio is 5.5 to 1, but of course you can't use a decimal point, can you? It's 11 to 2. So if I do it over here, 5.5 to 1, I got to get that out of a decimal. I can't have a decimal in a ratio. That's 11 by multiplying both sides by 2 is 11 to 2. Yeah, that was another little trick question there. Okay, question 11 was about sharing a sum of money in a ratio 3 to 5, Alexi's. So the ratio is 3 to 5, A to B. Alexi gets 36. What's B? So we can see if there's any straight up multiplier, I can clearly see that has been multiplied by 12. This is one method of doing it. Then this side must also be multiplied by 12, gives 60. You also could say, okay, 3 parts of the prize is 36, so dividing by 3 and then multiply by 5 will get you the same answer. So 60 for question 11. Question 12. Somebody has 18 meters of rope, cuts the rope into 2 in the ratio 1 to 5. Calculate the length of each piece. So 18 meters is split up into 1/6 and 5/6 because in total there's 6 parts. So one part then is 1/6 of it, which is 3, and 5/6 of it is 15. Just make sure it adds up to 18, which it does. So that's 1 mark for each of those answers. Question 13. If x, find x if this. So these are proportion questions, but without any words. 5 to 3 is the same as something to 12. You could set it up like this. 5 to 3 is the same as x to 12. And once they're underneath each other, or you can set it up as a fraction. 5 over 3 is the same as x over 12. You can set it up either way. So this is multiplied by 4. So this must be multiplied by 4. So the first one, a, has to be 5 times 4, which is 20. You could use similar fractions here. Next one, set up the same thing. I don't think it's quite as obvious. 35 to 56 is the same as 25 to x. Well, this is more difficult because I can't see a straight multiplication. If you can't see a straight multiplication, what can we do? Simplify, yeah. So maybe write as a fraction. 35 over 56 simplifies down to 7 goes into that 5 times, 7 goes into that 8 times. So it's 5 over 8 is the same as 25 over something. So I've simplified this one. That makes it easier because that's a straight multiplication of 5. That's a straight multiplication then of 5. So x must be 40 in B.
Will we get 2 marks for like?
One each, yeah, one each. Yeah, one each for that. Now we can start using your calculator. You could have used your calculator in the last one as well, but now you can start. Someone goes into exchange thing. €1 is worth 137. How many euros do you get for 50 francs? So this is 50, and I want. Okay. Okay. So first time I'm going to use the calculator. Where is it? There's somewhere there. So what do I do? First of all, is it going to be more or less than 50? Less. If it's less than 50, I'm going to use a division. 50 divided by 1.37, 60, 36.496. You should give it money, 36.50. Then if you round it up to 2 decimal places, but I didn't say what you had to round to, so any rounding is fine for that. So division if it's smaller like that. Always check your answer makes sense because Swiss more money for the same of the other one. Okay, simple interest. Find the ending balance. So you're gonna have to add on the interest if you can remember. So simple interest is straightforward. The amount multiplied by the interest rate multiplied by the number of years. So 34100 multiplied by 0.04 multiplied by 3, and this only gives me the interest 4092. I add that on 34100 plus the interest 4092 gives me the total of 38192. That's the first answer, 38192. Let's do the second question the same way. That's the interest. I did the same method. 117.6 is the interest. Add 210 onto it, and I get 327.6 for that one. Okay. I did the same method. Just the amount multiplied by the interest rate, but the interest rate as a decimal. All right. The last question on the first set of questions was compound interest rate. So compound interest, the amount multiplied by, well, what's the interest rate? It's 1.6%. So 1.6% will give 101.6% in this compound interest setup we need to do. The decimal for that 1.016, and we use the decimal. So 1.016 to the power of 7. 7 to the power of 7, not multiplied by 7. All right. So remember, compound interest, you use 1 point. So I type it in as seen to the power of 7, and I get 2,682.05. Did you get that?
That's the total.
I got
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I got 64.
Oh, wait, I
That doesn't make.
Yeah, I got 4,424.5.
Let's see, 2,400 multiplied by 1.16 to the power of 7. Maybe use 16%. No, I don't know what you used.
I didn't show my working for this one.
Yeah, same.
I am shocked.
I showed my working for all the other ones though. I don't know why I didn't do this one.
This is correct. This is correct. 64,000 is way too much money. If you're, yeah.
I was like, oh, I got 6 million though. Ain't no way.
How did we get that? We both got it.
Oh my god, I get it now, bro. Yeah.